Welcome again to the lecture series, Critical Thinking, Skills in Science. This is Chapter 4. We're working on building our own philosophy, and this is session number 8. Again, starting with the same image of the world, the glasses, and the interpretation, which is made by the glasses, through the glasses, as it views the world, which the same world, same evidence everybody sees, but it sees it in a particular way that is influenced by one's theory, habit, prejudice, and culture, which is the quote that we have from Stephen Jay Gould. First facts do not come to us as objective items seen in the same unambiguous way by all reasonable people. Theory, habit, prejudice, and culture all influence the facts we choose to observe and the way in which we perceive them. That is what this series is about. Again, like I said, I resonated with Stephen Jay Gould, even though he, being a scientist, called into question the fact that interpretations are a part of a scientist's work, in that there are different interpretations, there are different theories, there's different beliefs, there's different cultures, and that all influences how one sees the world. And like I said before, Stephen Jay Gould was trying to gain momentum that others would see the world his way, as he was offering a different view of biology that was not based on Darwinian worldview, but it was based on more of a Marxist worldview. And so he was trying to move people in that direction, but I see it as an open door, that if he says that theory, habit, prejudice, and culture all influence the things we see, that I can justify then my position equally by using what he uses to justify his position. And that's what it's about. And that's what involves critical thinking, is justifying the position that you hold. And many times we are guilty as Christians of just holding a position and defending it by saying, well, God said it, and I believe it, and that settles it. Or God said it, that settles it. And that's not a proper justification. It is, I believe in the inspired Word of God, but I also believe that we have to justify that through our naming it as our source of reliable knowledge. And then, but admitting that my interpretation also of that source is tainted by my own theory, habit, prejudice, and culture. What we're doing is we're building the house. We're continuing. We started at ground zero with culture. We went up to the foundation, which is epistemology, the source of reliable knowledge. We went up to metaphysics and answered the 3 areas of metaphysics with from our resource, from our source of reliable knowledge. We have gone up now to the methodology, epistemology, the methods used to get to our source or get information from our source. And we have looked at rationality, reason. We've looked at empiricism. And now we're on to the last method. My epistemology, my epistemological methods employed would be number 3, which could include skepticism, which skepticism is what is included in the scientific method. So that's why I'm including these 3, because these 3 same ones are included in the scientific method, which they use the method to filter what can be scientific knowledge and what cannot be. And many times it's said that God cannot be reliable knowledge of God because the scientific method is the most sure way to get to reliable knowledge, and we cannot observe God. And so without observing him, that doesn't make it rational to believe in him. And then we apply, then as applied skepticism is that if he can't be touched or seen, and it doesn't make sense, then I suspend judgment, and I would say no, is that God does not exist, or I'm skeptical of any claim of any people saying that God does exist. So should skepticism be a part of my thinking, of my methodology? And I would say it's okay, because we are skeptics. I am skeptical, and I look at things and I don't automatically believe in something. I do the back work, the homework, and but my skepticism is not left to just wallow around in human resources. My skepticism is as led by the Spirit of truth through revelation. So though I am skeptical, the Spirit of truth will lead me through that skepticism. And that's what we have in Mark chapter 9, verse 24. Immediately the father of the child cried out with tears, "I believe, help my unbelief." And I think that's many times where we're at, is that we do believe, but our belief is so small and our faith is so small that we cry out saying, I do believe, but help my unbelief. Help me to believe. Help my faith to grow. Now, we've been talking about the scientific method because that is what is used in critical thinking, and what is used to discern between what is science and what is pseudoscience. And pseudoscience is something that does not measure up to the scientific method. So, the discoverer of the scientific method, it's been credited to René Descartes as the father of the scientific method. And it says René Descartes built much of the framework of the modern scientific method. One of his main lines of thought was skepticism. Doubt it. Okay, if it doesn't pass empirical knowledge, if it isn't then empirical, then it probably won't pass rational, and so then I employ skepticism about that claim, about that knowledge claim. So he's the one that introduced skepticism, but he's the one that also developed the reasoning, the rationalism. And so that's why they're saying it's due to him that really built the foundation of the framework for modern scientific method. One of his main lines of thought was skepticism, that everything should be doubted until it could be proved rationally. Okay, he was an idealist, and so it was rational for him that you have to prove it rationally. Now, where did he come up with this method? Well, he came up with it from dreams that he had on November 10th, 1619. So in other words, there's four sources of reliable knowledge. There's intuition, there's external authority, there's rationalism, and there's empiricism. So, he developed the method, or gave it the base, that any claim to knowledge has to go through this filter of what is the scientific method, which includes then rationalism and skepticism. And how did he come up with that? Through a dream. It's kind of like, wait a minute. The dreams do not qualify as the scientific method of ascertaining reliable knowledge. Dreams are either intuition, which is just from within myself. But actually, I think dreams are related to revelation. So it's like something being revealed, because it was something that he had no knowledge of, but yet was revealed to him. And the same in the other sessions where we had a list of scientists that had discovered new concepts of science, advancement of science, and they were by dreams. They were revealed to the scientists through dreams. And what was revealed to them was something they had no knowledge of. So it's interesting that it seems the scientific method can be employed as a filter to filter out things they don't want. But at the same time, that filter was put in place by a source of reliable knowledge that is not recognized by that filter. The key characteristics of the scientific method include empirical observation, number one. Number two, formulation of a hypothesis. Now you recognize that number one is empiricism, number two is rationalism, number three, testing and experimentation. Okay, so, and you continue that cycle. So it's continuous, which leads to skepticism, which is there is no stopping point. There is no point that we arrive at that says, yeah, we've got it. Number four, reproducibility and verification. So in other words, if I come up with reliable knowledge, then it has to be reproduced, and others have to reproduce the same thing and get the same results. Then that verifies that that knowledge is true. None of those dreams that the scientists had were verified by anybody else. They were a source, a one-time source that gave that information at that one time. So it's kind of like, okay, but this is what that source of dreams said to make as a filter, which pretty much filters out whatever other science model that proposes something outside of the natural world that you can't observe. So in other words, if I propose, I believe in an intelligent designer, no, that's pseudoscience because it does not fit the filter. Okay, well, I believe then in creation. No, that's even farther out. Okay, well, how about, theistic evolution? Why? Occam's razor, you've got evolution, why put theistic on it if it evolved without them? So, and then number five is peer review. And that's kind of an interesting one, because in critical thinking, when applied to science, you have to think critically, not about what you're looking at, but about the assumptions that you have looking at it. And so it kind of turns a little bit when it comes to science. What is critical thinking? In that I have to come with the correct dispositions, and I have to come with the correct belief system, or I have to be willing to change my assumptions and my belief system to match the consensus. And so that is peer review, is that have you submitted your ideas to peer review, and what did they say? And so, well, what is peer review going to say? They're going to maintain the consensus. And what's the consensus? The consensus is single model, evolutionary science, closed system, ran by methodological naturalism. And so if I don't agree with those parameters, then the peer review will kick my suggestion out, because it did not follow along the consensus. So the scientific method can be good in that it leads us to a structure of doing things methodically and critically, in critical thinking, but it also can limit what we can accept as reliable knowledge. Quote by Friedrich Nietzsche. He says, "It is not the victory of science that distinguishes our 19th century, but the victory of the scientific method over science." A lot of the scientists in the early beginnings of science, from the 1700s, 1600s, 1700s, and maybe even into the 1800s, a lot of them were creationists. They were believers in God because they were the only ones thinking there was something to study, that there was an order to things, and there was a reason because it had been created by a God that had a reason for creating it. So therefore, a lot of the scientific branches of study were founded by scientists that believed in God, that believed in creation. And so the scientific method really was a latecomer to the practice of science in the 1900s. And so it is not the victory of science that distinguishes our 19th century, but the victory of the scientific method over science. So now to practice science, you have to do it according to the scientific method. And that sounds academic, it sounds correct, but it really limits what can be considered reliable knowledge and what can be considered as real science. John chapter 10, verse 37. "If I don't do the works of my Father, don't believe me. But if I do them, though you don't believe me, believe the works, that you may know and believe that the Father is in me and I in the Father." When Jesus was on earth, he did many works, many miracles. And the establishment, the religious establishment, tried to stop him because they said, with all these things that he's doing, he's drawing crowds away from us and to himself. And we're losing the battle if he continues doing this. And so in other words, they did not believe him, but they saw the works. And it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. If you see the works and you know that the works are special and the works are miracles and they're drawing people, and you're going to try and stop them. Why? Why are you trying to stop him? Because the miracles were confirming his identity or who he was. And so Jesus even speaks to him, says, if you don't believe in me, that's okay, but believe in the works that I do. Look at what I'm doing, that you may know and believe that the Father is in me and I in the Father. Because the Father does not listen to sinners. The Father does not listen and give power to those that are unredeemed. So in other words, Jesus is saying, look at what I am doing and reason. Use your reason. You're looking. Look at what I am doing. Empirically observe. You don't believe in me, reason, rational, but look at my works empirically. And they still rejected him. We're back to the house. We've done the foundation. Well, we've done the culture, 0. We've done the foundation, epistemology, source. We've done the metaphysics. We've done now the methods. We've done the methods of rationalism, of empiricism, and skepticism. Now we're going to be moving on to the next phase. But what just to remember that we choose our epistemology and we should stick with it. And the sources of reliable knowledge of our epistemology is intuitive knowledge, authoritarian knowledge, logical knowledge, reason, human reason, empirical knowledge. Those are the four sources. And what we have read about and seen about scientific advancements, this seems to be a filter that is applied once in a while, but not all the time, because intuitive knowledge or even authoritarian knowledge that is revealed has often been a major part of scientific discovery. And yet scientific method requires logical knowledge and empirical knowledge to be granted the platform of being reliable knowledge. Reliable knowledge can only come through empirical knowledge that is then ran through the system of logical, rational knowledge. So, intuition is direct knowledge. There's more to that definition, but intuition is direct knowledge through dreams or hallucinations. Is that an acceptable source of reliable knowledge? According to the scientific method, no. But the scientific method was born by intuition or revelation. So it's kind of like, okay, what do we do with that one? Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 5. That prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death because he has spoken rebellion against Yahweh your God. Question would be, God can communicate to his people and has communicated through dreams. But is God the only source of dreams? And I would say no, not according to this verse, because this verse says that prophet or dreamer of dreams shall be put to death because he has spoken rebellion. Whatever dream separates us or takes us further away from God is a dream that God did not give, or a dream that has been misused in some way to move us further away from God or to eliminate God from being acceptable as reliable knowledge. We're wrapping up on session 8. We only have 2 more. We're on chapter 4, building our own philosophy. Are you still building? Are you still with me? I hope you are, and that you're putting together your own system, but also realizing that we can be skeptical of other claims of knowledge, which include scientific knowledge that comes through the scientific method, because it's kind of shady how we even got to that method. Then there's people celebrating that method, saying that the greatest advancement of the 19th century was not science, but it was the victory of the scientific method over science. Thank you for accompanying me. We're Tim and Holly. You're welcome to communicate with us. We're in chapter 4, building our own philosophy of critical thinking skills in science. This is session number 8.